Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Accelerate Testing, Optimizing Outcomes, your Spira plus Yes solution. I'm Audrey Markham. Just a quick introduction about myself. I am on the partnerships team here at Inflectra, and I have been working with Smart Testing. They're one of our technology partners. And so I'm excited to moderate today's webinar on testing and outcomes with our two different tools. And today's session is done, of course, in collaboration with Smart Testing here on the call, and a couple housekeeping items to kind of put underway before I hand over the microphone. First of all, this webinar is recorded, so it will be available for on-demand viewing after the webinar. And please feel free to ask any questions throughout the webinar that you may have in the Q&A box, and we will answer them all at the end of the presentation. And that being said, I will now hand it over to our co-presenters to introduce themselves. Michel, if you want to begin.
Yes, my name is Michel Guez. I'm the CEO of Smart Testing. And I will be talking very shortly today.
Okay, and my name is Dermot Caniff. So I'm Solutions Manager for EMEA here at Inflectra. I'm based in the west of Ireland, and joining me as well from Smart Testing, as well as Michelle, is Arno.
And I'm Arno Bouzy, so I'm the product manager from Smart Testing, and I will talk and present with Dermot today.
Great. So yeah, this kind of covers our collaboration. We've been talking to Smart Testing, I suppose, officially since November last year. We've had quite a few very interesting conversations, very energizing conversations from my point of view, and very exciting stuff coming from both of our companies in terms of collaboration. Just on the side of Smart Testing, maybe you could talk us and the audience through some of the characteristics of the company. Michel.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm sneaking in for a couple of minutes to briefly present Smart Testing, and then I let the competent people talk about the product and the integration. So just a word about Smart Testing. Smart Testing develops innovative testing solutions to increase agile teams' efficiency. Innovative solution, yes, but also easy to use, visual, and going forward, increasingly AI-powered. If you can change.
Mm-hmm.
For that, we leverage our historical expertise in model-based testing, this approach that consists in automatically generating tests from graphical representations. We have a strong and worldwide reputation in this field. We also leverage our investments in the domain of AI for testing and quality engineering since 2018. We have a dedicated team, a dedicated AI lab as part of the company that works exclusively on such technologies as machine learning, deep learning, and obviously generative AI. And we apply these technologies to our two products. You can change the slide. So first, Yest, our visual test design solution. It's our flagship product that has been on the market for the past 7 years now. The webinar will enable you to discover the main capabilities, so I won't go any further. And second product is Gravity, a testing intelligence platform. You certainly heard about BI, Business Intelligence Solutions. Gravity applies a similar concept as BI to testing and quality engineering. Gravity collects and analyzes lots of data with AI from actual usage of the application and the test in production and from other relevant sources, and provides guidance to the Agile and DevOps team. Gravity is still in beta version and should be launched around July, hopefully. And
Great.
that's it for me.
We look forward to the arrival of Gravity.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, as for Inflectra, our whole reason for being in the marketplace is to help teams, the teams that we work with, both our partners and also our customers, to deliver quality software faster and with lower risk. So the key items there are quality. We have quality at our core when we develop our products, which I'll go through in just a little while. We want to make life easier for our customers, for the people who use our software, and we also want to give them a way of linking all of the potential artifacts that are generated during the course of their software development lifecycle together to gain insight and to understand better how they may improve their processes, how they may improve the quality of the software that they deliver. So key to that are the products that we develop. Our linchpin technology, which we'll be talking about a lot during this webinar, is Spira. The Spira platform can be delivered in 3 different flavors depending on what you require. We have Spira Test, which is literally just test management for teams. Then Spira Team offers a little bit more in the realm of communication and collaboration between team members. And then Spira Plan is essentially the Spira platform with everything switched on. It has all of the extras, including risk management, including several of the migration tools and so on. Additional to that, we have some add-ons like Chronodesk and Spira Capture, which allow you to enhance the way you deal with, for example, instance or handle your exploratory testing. And we also have TaraVault, which is a source code management wrapper that wraps around whatever source code management technology you're using so that Spira can interact with it. And finally, we have Rapise, which is our test automation tool that allows you to test web, desktop, and mobile applications from your Windows PC and can also integrate very seamlessly with Spira. So I suppose that sort of leads us on to what we're talking about on this webinar. So yeah, we typically, when we're developing software products, we have specific requirements around how we keep track of the quality. Now, one of the key metrics there is traceability. Depending on your organization, it may just be, a priority. You may live and or die by the traceability inherent in your product development process. Or maybe you haven't up until now, and it is now posing itself as an issue. So, I mean, we see a lot of that in with the customers that come to us on the Inflectra side. Michelle, you probably see customers asking you about traceability as well.
Absolutely, of course, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so addressing the traceability issue and then dealing with requirements and your tests and the interrelationship between those is critical for many of the people who come to us. We each of our companies have products that help them with this. From the smart testing side of things, Yest is designed to address this. So maybe you can take us through some of the ways that it addresses the issues that we discussed in the previous slide.
Yes, so if you have to remember only 3 things about what Yest does, it offers additional features to what is already available in the test management tool. So the idea is to improve the collaboration using the graphical representation, because you have a better understanding of what a set of test scenarios do, in fact, graphically and in a way that is shareable in all the extended team. The other aspect is what we call the tester IDE, meaning that the developers have their own integrated development environment, which is dedicated to code, but testers usually have only their hands and their keyboard to write something. So the idea of the tester IDE in Yest is to provide some functions that will help the tester be more productive in his daily work, which is writing the steps, and Yes provides some propagation functionalities, refactoring functionalities that are very useful to improve productivity. The last part is a bridge between describing the test for manual testing and done by analysts to automation. So the idea is that today, automation engineers are doing the work on their side, and practically nobody can help them. So the idea of Yest here is to reuse what is done by functional testers to do part of the automation work, to increase the productivity of the whole team for automation. And you can go to the next slide. So looking inside what is available in the IDE, you can press your button. There is automatic test generation, which is from the graphical representation, from the decision table that we will see in the demo. It's possible to produce automatically a set of test scenarios, and also to control during all the lifetime of the project what happens when a modification is made in the graphical representation. If I add a new business rule, then what is the impact on the actual tests scenario that are available, and what is to be corrected? So even there, Yest suggests some modification that will keep all in sync, so modifying the test scenarios will not be painful. And then click again. Oops. So in this, for this purpose, the change are made into the scenarios, and what is important here is to know that it's controlled. In fact, we are very how could I say that? We are very attached to this idea that the testers is in charge. So everything which is made in Yest is made, of course, helped by the product, but made on testers' decision. And then also go on. Auto-completion is part of this IDE element, which is very common in development environments. But auto-completion meaning I start writing some step and just suggests what steps have been already used anywhere else, so I can reuse the same presentation. So afterwards, I will be able to do probably the next topic, which is refactoring. No, it's keyword driven. Refactoring is there. So the refactoring will be made using this same presentation of everything in the steps, which is very common once again for the IDE, which is I'm using a function in an IDE and there I'm using a step. And the same way when I change the content of a step, Yes suggests to propagate this modification to all the other usage of the same step. And last but not least, the keyword-driven testing automation benefit from what we have done before, because we are ready to automate very rapidly from a presentation which is standardized, in fact, in the steps. So the result of it is accelerating the test design activity, by a by a ratio of 40%, which provides us on the complete testing process. That means from on the very first creation of the test scenarios in the test design phase to the execution, including the implementation of the scenarios, a benefit of roughly 20% in productivity, because we are designing the best test and we are designing them with the minimal number of tests necessary to test the applications.
Absolutely.
Okay, and we can go to the next. So Yest is there. It's in the middle, but it's just a presentation. The idea is that we integrate, in fact, with the existing environment. You are using Spira for requirement management and for manual testing. Okay, Yest is there to accelerate production of the test design, the test implementation phases, included into your standard environment. Same from Rapids, but we will talk in another webinar about that. The idea is to be able to design the correct test without modifying your environment, to integrate into your environment exactly as it was before.
Exactly.
Okay.
And from Spira's point of view, we quite often have customers who use Spira to manage their software development lifecycle. They start with the requirements, they build it out in terms of development tasks and then tests. It depends on what the customer is doing as to whether they define hard steps within Spira or if they just kind of hand it off as a black box to some sort of testing service. And that's really where Yest kind of comes in. It provides a lot of intelligence around the creation of the tests, but also this is interoperability. That's what I'm excited about anyway, and we're going to see it on the demo. Okay.
So this is a demo part who will explain what is inside Spira and what we can do inside it on the requirement part first, and then we will continue with the smooth integration between Spira and Yest to a workflow as depicted here, and the decision tables, and generate test scenarios. And after that, we will what we call publish these test scenarios into Spira again to produce the correct test scenarios. And afterwards, we will simulate some kind of modification into the list of requirements. We will add new user stories and analyze the impact, update the test scenarios into Yest, and then publish again to update this scenario into Spira.
Right. Okay, so I'll take the reins then. We'll have a look at take a look at Spira briefly, and then we'll talk about how Yest interacts with it with this new integration. Okay. Right. So what we're looking at here, can everybody see my screen still? Okay, great. What we're looking at here is an instance of Spira. We're looking at it with the dark mode set to on, but I could also set it to light mode. It depends on your preference. And we can set specific modes here, depending on what your requirements are. But yes, what we're looking at here is kind of an overview of a typical software product that's being developed. In Spira, we regard these as products. Some other product software tools that you might use might regard them as projects. The terminology really is immaterial. What matters is that this is a single discrete collection of artifacts to do with your own development process. Now, There's a hierarchy within Spira as well. You can have a collection of products, which is called a program, a collection of programs, which is called a portfolio, and then you can collect all your portfolios under enterprise. All of these levels are available with Spira Plan, which is the full version of our Spira platform. So what we can see here is some analytics regarding our testing effort in this particular product, but we can also dashboard in a general sense. So if I pull open the general dashboard here, we can see more of maybe a project manager's view of the product that we're dealing with. Here we can see risk summary and release schedule and so on. Or if I'm more on the development side, I can see a development-based dashboard of my product in its current state. And then we can actually go into the artifacts themselves. So corresponding with the software development lifecycle, most people would start at the planning phase, looking at requirements, releases, any documentation associated with that. And then depending on whether they're doing test first or test after, they might go into development and create tasks associated with development, or go into testing, defining their test cases and so on. Down here, we also have the ability to track incidents and risks. And risk is anything that poses a risk to delivery or a risk to management of the software. And the great thing about Spira is that you can define these, you can link those to requirements, you can link them to incidents. You can also have tasks that mitigate the risk as well. And these tasks can be development tasks, they can be project management tasks, they can essentially be anything. Spira as a platform is very flexible, can be tailored to your own requirements, and modified as well with customizations across the types of, for example, incidents that you raise, even including the roles that users have within the system. So just starting out here at the requirements, we can view an overview of the requirements associated with this product. I'm going to switch back to the dark mode because I prefer it. It's easier on my eyes. So within Spira, you can have a hierarchy of requirements. You can have top level and lower level requirements. These could correspond to user stories at the lowest level and then aggregating up or folding up into an epic at the higher level, being a set of user stories. But it's entirely up to you. Implicit in this hierarchy is a sense of dependency. So for example, this higher level book management requirement won't have complete coverage or progress until all of the lower level requirements have been completed. Okay. And at a glance, we can kind of see the interrelationship between all of these requirements. So if I open one up here, so if we look at system qualities, and we can see kind of the higher level requirement set up here. We can look in the overview and we can assign some standard fields here like ownership, importance, component, and so on. Within Spira, you can also define custom fields. So for example, this GitLab ID, this ranking field, these are all customized, added by me for this particular product. So the advantage here is that we can track information specific to our organization that's meaningful within our organization or within our industry. And not only that, we not only can reference them during the course of our development process, but we can also refer back to them when we're trying to gain intelligence from this process. So for example, if you're in an audited environment or an audited industry, you can generate reports and filter those reports based on the specific custom fields that you're defining here, which is very powerful. It means that you don't have to trawl through just yards and yards of text in order to find the information that you want. You're really just picking out what's necessary for your own organization. Now, if I wanted to view at greater detail, I can dive down and see the sub requirements here. So for example, if I choose this one that I created earlier, I can define the release that I want to associate that with. I can define authors, components, etc. I can provide as much detail as I want in the description or in the notes. We can enter into a conversation about it in the comments section. And once we've defined kind of the overview, we can get into things like development tasks, where we define what has to happen in order to implement the particular requirement. And we can also get into test coverage. It's possible to have other associations as well. So for example, I could link this to another requirement. We can have cross-linking of requirements. We can link it to incidents, to risks, or to other releases. And a relatively new option that we have here is the ability to use ChatGPT. So given a specific requirement, we can actually automatically generate, for example, Gherkin's syntax scenarios. We could generate tasks and test cases. These are just kind of placeholders, really. And we can identify risks. So if I, for example, choose the risk section there, that goes off, sends an API request to GPT. And once it's processed that request, and if I go into the associations, I'll be able to see associated risks once I refresh. Okay, so down here, yeah, we've got a risk, negative feedback. If users share negative reviews to social media, it could potentially harm the reputation of the software. That's a good one. I hadn't thought of that. I suppose that's the advantage of using a GPT-based system. Okay. So that's requirements. We can view our planning and releases. Let's just dive into releases briefly just to see the schedule type of view that we can have. So I can see the sprints associated with a given release. I can view that in hierarchy. I can view it in a Gantt chart just so that we can kind of see the schedules more clearly. And we can also view it as a mind map. But yeah, basically the idea is that we can see the breakdown of different releases depending on what we need to view. So this is 5 out of 20. I'm filtering these so that we can just kind of narrow the focus. We also have the planning board. So for a given set of requirements, we can adjust how we're going to assign those or move them along in different swim lanes based on whether they're under review, rejected, accepted, or requested. These headings can be modified, so it's entirely up to you what way you organize them. And I think I'm filtering here, which is why we can't see any, but moving swiftly along. From that point on, we can view our tasks, we can view our incidents, and we can also view our test cases, test sets, and test runs. So let me just look at test sets. So within Spira, a test set is a collection of tests that we've decided to run together. Okay, so they could be run on an automated test environment. They could be run manually. It depends on what kind of tests are clustered in there. But if I open up, for example, our test cycle for release 1, we can see just on that line level, we can see the execution status. And then if I dive deeper, we can actually see the collection of tests and their latest outcomes. And then I can just dive in and see in greater detail what's going on with a specific test. What are, for example, the steps that need to be performed, the execution history, and then where the actual failure was encountered. And then we can also view any linked incidences. So in executing these tests, we can raise incidents, excuse me. And those incidents can also be linked back to other artifacts within our project development lifecycle. There are different types of incidents that you can raise, enhancements, incidents, issues, etc. And the linkage between those can be viewed here. We can define our higher level details, our criticality, our priority, severity, and so on. And again, we can incorporate custom fields into that if we feel the need to. And then once we've done with all the development side of things, there's also the reporting side. So we can dashboard based on all the information within the system. We can use the pre-baked widgets that are available within Spira, or we can create custom ones that use SQL to pull, or an SQL-like language to pull information directly from the Spira database. We can also generate reports based on the same sort of information. Those can be pre-baked ones, or they can be customized, again, using that SQL-like language to interact with our database. And that's a very fast, high-level view of Spira. And as I said, where Spira might allow you to define steps individually within your test process, sometimes it's easier to have some kind of test process or test definition process that's more intelligent and also communicates back with Spira on the changes that are made. I haven't seen many. I think Yest is definitely attractive in that regard because it has that feedback loop, and it in terms of ease of use, as you're about to see, it's rather an excellent product. So, I guess over to you, Arno, to show the beauty of Yest.
Yes. So let me share my screen first. Okay, do you see my screen?
I do.
So this is the project I will work on starting from Spira. So we've got a list of user story that have been described, and this application is some HR application in which we are adding new employees, removing new employees that are departing, and we've got two types of employees. In fact, we've got regular employees and interns. So what we want to focus on is using Yest, see what type of scenarios we can produce, long scenarios. In fact, we are not working at the user story level, but we are doing functional testing for application integration or end-to-end testing. And here we can see the up level of my workflow, which is I will start by adding a new employee in the company, and then I want to test what happens when the employee is removed from the list or when it is updated. So here, adding the employee is a sub-workflow in which we have the creation of details, the new employee, the banking information, etc., which are corresponding actually to the user stories that have been described. So here we can see that we have a link with the user story here, the number 82, which is the first one here. And this link will be kept from Yest. And the way we're seeing, in fact, what user stories are used is directly by browsing my project in Spira. So I've got here this project ERP, and here I can see the employee list, and I can see all the user stories corresponding into this employee administration part and payroll part, etc. So we will have a link here described at the precise level where the user story is involved, and Yest will collect all the necessary elements to create the test scenarios and create the traceability links. So here we have the difference between what happens for interns and what happens for a regular employee. And we're using for that purpose decision tables where we define, depending on the employee kind, then we will go afterwards to what happens to interns and what happens to regular employees. So by this way, we can focus on small bits of the global process. And then from that, we will be able to generate the complete list of test scenarios. So generation will be done from this point and starting the basic generation. I've got windows everywhere. I will have here the minimum number of test scenarios that are to be generated to be able to cover everything in this workflow and in all the sub workflow, which is about removing or updating the data from a given employee. So if we look at one of the scenarios, for example, this one, we can see that it's a regular employee, and we will go down to removal of this employee, and we can see downwards where we are going inside each of the workflows. So this view is not only used for understanding the workflow and the workflow of all the test scenarios and generating. It's also here to be able to drive what happens actually for each of the scenarios and to have a complete control on what is depicted here. So I'm going to update here. I can see I'm updating this salary, etc. So I'm quite happy with what I've generated from there. And it's time to go to Spira. So here we can configure the number of where we are putting the test scenarios. And here, if I'm looking at the testing part, I've got no test case yet. And publication from Yest will produce the same list of test scenarios that the one we have defined into Yest, with their steps and also with the links with the requirements here, user stories. But so all the scenarios are published one by one. And looking back now, we should have, if I refresh, the list of scenarios appearing here. So if I look at this creation and removal I've shown before, I've got my steps the same way I had it into Yest. And in terms of requirement coverage, we are now the reference to the two user stories that were involved, assigning a salary and creating a new employee. So here everything is there, ready to be used and executed as Dermot explained. But the thing is that we've got new requirements incoming. And these two ones, in fact, we need the manager acknowledgement for removal and termination of the contract. And we have a new one also, which is that during the RA, we need to register the manager approval. So they are not in my scenarios. And the issue is always, what is modified by these scenarios? So the first one is, let's start by this one. Register manager approval during our hiring. So this is by considering adding an employee, and let's put it somewhere here. So the idea is that we are focusing on what is already there in our test scenarios. We don't go to the scenarios, but we go to the workflow and say, okay, the manager approval must be registered here in between. So we will create a new task here saying register manager approval. Okay, that's a bit bigger than the others, but doesn't matter really. And we will add a decision table here. So this is influenced by the fact that it's an intern or not. So the manager approval must be stored only if it's a manager. So I will have if it's the regular employee. So I will have a condition on the employee kind and say, okay, so these are the two possible values for my employee kind. If it's regular employee, I will register the manager approval. Otherwise, so meaning if it's an intern, I'm doing nothing. Just going through that. And by the way, I want to add a link to the requirement for next traceability. So starting from here, with my user story, I can just drag and drop it. And so now I can register this manager approval. So same for the other, which is we need manager acknowledgement for termination. So while removing, so this is already concerning the regular employee. So same here, we can add a new task just here. There is no condition to add because we are in the condition of the regular employee, and we say just manager acknowledgement here. And at the step, manager acknowledgement. Okay, and same, we can add the connection with the requirement, need acknowledgement here, and oops, here. Okay. So everything is fine in terms of workflow, but what is the impact, in fact? So I see that two of my scenarios are now not consistent with the workflow. Of course, I added some different things. So we can see here in the creation and removal, yeah, we should have something about the registering the manager approval, and it's not there. So Yest may help you directly correct. Here, it's a very simple example, of course, but Yest may help you correct the test scenarios, just showing a suggestion for update. Here, you see it suggests to add this register and to the managerial acknowledgement. Okay, so this is the good thing I've got to put in place, but I've got a window in front, so sorry, I'm reducing my screen there. So I accepted this modification and go back to large screen. And same for the other one, but we can also say, I want to correct all the test scenarios, and just looking at the list, the other ones were now compliant with the workflow, and I've got an automatic correction, which is possible here. I can have a look at here, but I'm confident. Just apply the correction, and indeed, this scenario is updated, adding the register manager approval. Okay, so this is the new version of my test scenarios. Just going to the publication again, and just launch again the same publication. It will check if all of the test scenarios and just update what is necessary. So this one is updated because the steps are updated and the requirements link are updated from my test scenarios. And let's look from the registration for approval. And we see the test coverage here with my two scenarios. So the links have been made. I've got my new stepping, which register manager approval, and same on the coverage. I've got now this additional requirement, which is involved here. So that's the way we are manipulating and updating the test scenarios, starting from the graphical representation, which is very easy to understand for everyone, and giving to the rest of the team a good insights on what the test team does, what is tested, and this can be discussed and compared to the expectation to the BAs, etc. Right, everything is finished there. So I can go back to the slides and just about
absolutely.
automation. Sorry.
Yes, thank you for that. And yeah, regarding automation, you people may be wondering what happens in the case where we want to automate the tests. And yeah, we both support that. Yes supports that, Spira supports that, and Inflectra have a tool called Rapise, and we're going to be having a webinar about the integration of all of what you've seen so far with the Rapise test automation tool. So stay tuned for that. It'll be another exciting adventure into the world of test management. So I'm very excited to see that, because I've seen the integration at work already, so I just want everybody else to see it too.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much. I think now we'll kind of open the floor up for any questions from the audience. And we'll start with a couple. The first one is, can Spira and Yest integrate with Selenium WebDriver for automated testing?
So from the Spira end, yes, you can integrate with Selenium WebDriver and a number of other third-party tools in order to automate tests that are being reported through Spira. From Yest's point of view, I'll hand that over to my colleague.
From Yest's point of view, in fact, the integration will be done with Rapise, and this is where the integration with Selenium will be handled. Yest will focus on creating the functional part of the test scenario. So depending on the framework you are using behind, it will reuse by construction the content of the scenarios.
Right.
And then we have a second question here. Would I lose all my data if I switch from TestRail to Spira for test management?
The quick answer to that, a lot kind of depends on what you've put into TestRail, I guess, but the quick answer to that is that we have ways to migrate from TestRail to Spira. So I suppose the longer answer is work with us. So Inflectra can help our customers with that migration.
All right. If there are any other questions, I think we've answered all of them so far. But if you have any additional questions after the end of this webinar, please do get in touch with us. And we'll also be sending a follow-up email with today's recording as well, in case you weren't able to make it. But I just want to thank all of my co-presenters today, Arnaud, Dermot, and Michelle today. Thank you so much for presenting and sharing some really interesting ideas, and also the integration. So excited to kind of have this as the kickstart of our partnership.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Yeah.